Welcome, everybody, back into Nerd Sesh. As always, I'm Carson Brever, and alongside me is Logan Camden, and you already know the drill. It's Sunday night, so we're going to be breaking down all of the Week 14 NFL action, starting with Logan, a sequel that we just keep seeing over and over again. It feels like when we're watching the Kansas City Chiefs, we're on like Fast and Furious levels of franchising, where they keep doing the same things, but also it keeps becoming a little bit crazier. Like we're going from block kicks to doinks. And at the end of the day, it's all about family for Vin Diesel and the boys. And at the end of the day, it's all about black magic for the Kansas City Chiefs. But they do it again, Logan, and they eke out a win at the last second against the Los Angeles Chargers. What do you take away from this?
I mean, are you even surprised? I'm not surprised
Not at all.
anymore.
No, not at all.
If you had asked me before the game started, how is it going to end? I would probably say Chiefs have the ball last. They kick a game-winning field goal. We're sitting on pins and needles the entire time, but somehow they eke it out. It's just what they do. And I can already hear people, Carson, because I think conversations about the Chiefs have kind of gotten preposterous at this point. Oh my God, the Chiefs are freaking frauds. They keep winning, and they're winning these games by 1 point. They keep winning. They keep winning. This is what they do. And this is what I've been said about the Chiefs. Please count them out. Please count out Patrick Mahomes again. Lull yourself right into it. We can rock the cradle. We can put the little baby to sleep. Please lull yourself into that, because they did it last year and they completely faltered down the stretch, and everybody counted them out and they won the Super Bowl. And people are walking right into it again this year because they keep eking out wins. This is what this team does, and this is why they are number one in my power rankings. There's no team that I trust in the biggest, the most crucial spots of football games to execute. Nobody else in the league. The Chiefs are number one. Third downs, guess what? They're still the number one third down offense in football. Situationally, when the defense needs to lock up, it needs to put everything together, they do it. Like, it's not pretty. It's not sexy. It never is with Kansas City. It hasn't been this entire year. But they keep winning. Like you said, man, it's the same story. We're on part 13 now. We got part 14 coming up next week. It'll probably be a triple doink off the upright. I don't know. This is the Chiefs' reputation. I think they are the best situational team in the sport right now, and that's why they're number one. And they got Patrick Mahomes. You see how Patrick Mahomes puts a game on ice there at the end. I think it's really funny, Carson, that people continue to find reasons to count the Chiefs out, and they'll probably do it again this week. I'm not there.
So I do not at all disagree that the Chiefs are the best situational team in football, and they are the clutchest team in football, right? It's not a coincidence. It's not luck that they are winning 90% of their one-score games. They haven't lost a one-score game this year. Their only loss was by 2 scores to the Bills. So I agree with you on that front, and I thought that they were wildly impressive in that respect on the final drive. And Patrick Mahomes just does his superhero stuff, right? Multiple huge third down conversions. When they bring the blitz on the third and long, when they're just outside field goal range and he finds Worthy, that was a really impressive play. And then obviously you have the conversion on third down to win this game when he fully makes a pass rusher miss and is able to find Kelsey, as he has so many times in those spots. I mean, they're just the best third down duo that we've seen in the NFL, maybe ever. They are always on the same page in those spots. And it's incredible. I mean, every single week this year, it feels like they're 50% or better on third down. And that is crucial to deciding these games. And the other thing that Kansas City is really, really excellent at is just sustaining these drives, right? We know this is not an explosive offense. This is not a dynamic offense. It's not going to be one of the highest scoring offenses in football, but what they are is number one in average time per drive, number one in average plays per drive. They have the ability to grind you down with that run game. It's not going to be super efficient. It's not going to be super pretty, but it's just good enough. And then if they're sitting in a 3rd and 6, they've been better than anybody in football in those situations, and they can just stack those on top of each other, and it leads to a field goal. Or it leads to a long touchdown drive, or in this spot, it leads to a field goal, and they keep Justin Herbert from touching the ball again in this game, which was the biggest thing because I thought he was really excellent in this second half. So all of that is true, and at the same time, we can acknowledge this is a good win but they're also getting by on just being so great situationally against inferior teams. And that's what the Chargers without Ladd McConkey are. I mean, there's hardly a worse group of weapons in football than the Chargers without Ladd McConkey. They're still solid because of their defense and Herbert, but they are clearly an inferior team. And that's what they've been doing week after week, right? We've seen them do it to the Raiders and the Panthers and the Broncos week after week, eking out these games where they are outplaying them in the final stretch. And I do trust them more in those situations than anybody else. But I guess my concern is just, are they playing at a high enough level for 60 minutes to get to those spots against the truly elite teams in football? Because I think that they need more. I think they need more. And I do think we see flaws with this team. The Chiefs secondary outside of McDuffie was not good in this game. The pass rush outside of Chris Jones was not good in this game. The pass protection wasn't very good in this game. We've talked about the tackles as a concern. We've talked about the secondary as a concern and the overall pass defense. And yes, they're winning these games, but look at the only really good team they've played. I mean, damn near all season outside of Baltimore, who is really good, but obviously we know that defense is a major red flag. It's the Buffalo Bills, and they lost that game, and they just got flat out outplayed. So obviously, I'm never going to discount the Chiefs as a top tier contender, but do I think they're the best team in football like you do? I don't. And this isn't a performance that convinces me of that. This convinces me that, I should be absolutely confident the Chiefs are going to grind out that field goal drive they need to win a game 19-17 against the Chargers. But that's not the standard for them. And that's not the standard for these top tier contenders. And I do just think we see other teams that are more talented, that are more consistently great, and that have fewer red flags.
The Chiefs do have red flags, and that's one thing that I do want to get across. I'm not blind to the fact that the Chiefs aren't flawed. They are flawed. They have flaws. The biggest ones are the tackles, in my opinion. The fact that they can't keep Patrick Mahomes high and dry. And, that's what lost the Chiefs their one Super Bowl against against Tampa Bay, right?
Brady, what does it matter? It's all the same.
Exactly, right? And the head SOB. Pass rush gets home all game long. Mahomes can't get a pass off. That's why they lose that game. And so I don't think the tackles are good. I don't think the secondary is elite. I don't think this defense is as great as it was last year. But my thing is, I just don't think this team is going to blow you away. I just think this is how they win football games. I get it, man. I get they don't have any sexy, explosive wins over teams like this, but there is just the reason that I'm so adamant that I want to plant the flag and be here defending the Chiefs, not because I like Kansas City, right? I'm a Steelers fan. I would love if Christmas Day, if we smack the Chiefs in the jaw and knock them off their high horse, right? I would love nothing more than that. But at the end of the day, they are the best team situationally, in my opinion. They still have the best quarterback on the planet in Patrick Mahomes. I know that you think that Allen is playing better, and I think that's inarguable. I think there are other guys that just statistically, with how dominant some of their team wins in classic moments, I don't think there's been a quarterback in football this year that has had more moments than Josh Allen. That's not the only reason why he's the MVP of the league and playing as the best quarterback in football right now, but it is a component. That being said, the guy that I still trust more than anybody else when the game is in the balance is Patrick Mahomes. There's nobody else that I would want under center more for my team. And so they still check a lot of boxes for me in why they are real deal contenders and probably my favorite. And I'll run through them. I think they're the best coach team in football, top to bottom. I trust Spags and Andy Reid to get this team ready to go more than anybody else in the league. They have the best quarterback, as I mentioned. They still have superstars on the field, right? Chris Jones, Travis Kelce, McDuffie. They make their impact known. Outside of that, I mean, you still have a good group of skill position weapons. Pacheco's back healthy. Hopkins. Juju can make plays when you need him to, right? And more importantly, this was a big loss for the Bills this week against Los Angeles. They needed this win to keep pace with the Chiefs. They have the head-to-head victory. Now the final component in stealing that bye from Kansas City was to win this week and to keep pace and to hope that Kansas City somehow slips up down the rest of the way. And so all those things that I've already laid out, this team is going to get one home field advantage. They're also going to get a bye in round one. And that is what I have said repeatedly throughout this year. If I can catch Kansas City without a week of rest where they got a battle like everybody else and win 4 straight, that's how you slay the dragon. I could see them falling to somebody along the way. You're going to give this team a whole week of preparation and a whole week of getting everybody fresh and ready to go? Oh, Oh my God, I might double down and pick them to win it again this year and be the first team to ever win 3 consecutive Super Bowls. That's my thing, man. Carson, I think and you can push back if you want. Please do if you disagree with me. I just think because you'll look at the point differential with this team, right? And it's the lowest to any team that has been this successful in NFL history. I think all conventional logic goes out the window when you were dealing with a team like this, with Patrick Mahomes, with all the stuff that they do so well situationally. I just think all logic and all reason kind of goes out the window when you're trying to point at stuff like that. And the Chiefs are still top dog to me. They're still top dog to me, man. There's nobody that I'm willing. There's nobody that I trust more than them in this league to put my nuts on the table and say that they're number one. And with the Bills gaffe this week, it's like coming into this week, the Bills were closest to me because of Josh Allen. And it wasn't Josh that let me down. It was the defense and Sean McDermott. And then I looked at Detroit. Detroit doesn't have Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen. The Chiefs do. And I don't know, man. I don't know what it's going to take for them to get knocked off this pedestal for me.
I completely agree with you in terms of if it comes down to one of these clutch games, there's nobody I trust more than the Kansas City Chiefs. My concern is just what if they get outplayed for 60 minutes? Because I really think they can get outplayed for 60 minutes. It happened against Buffalo. Buffalo also led a massive clutch drive, and I do think Josh Allen is playing better than any quarterback in football. So there may be an exception to that pure clutch factor. But the Lions are just so much more complete as a football team, and especially if they're healthy defensively. And the Chiefs of last year, of course, we saw follow a similar format, right? Where they leaned on the run game more and they grinded out games. And Pat was incredible situationally, and Kelsey stepped up in big moments and showed it. So did Rashee Rice. And this year, maybe it's D-Hop who does that as a second weapon. And their coaching was an advantage against a bunch of teams. The one difference is that defense was outstanding. I think it was the best defense in football. I don't think they have that this year. I think they have taken a step back there. I'm also more worried about the tackle spots. So look, I can't deny that this formula is incredibly effective. It has them at 12-1. I'm just not quite as confident as you that it's enough. And these wins at this point, like, don't really do anything for me. Like, of course I expect the Chiefs to win these games. And that's an incredible testament because it is incredible to consistently win close games like this. Nobody else does it at this clip. But what's going to move me with the Chiefs is going to be seeing how they perform against an elite team. And when I say move, I mean, they're stamped in my top 4 contenders. They're stamped in my top 2 teams in the AFC. That is not going to change no matter what happens in the regular season. But when you're talking about them as the number 1 team in football, and it sounds like pretty clearly to you, I'm just not all the way there. How about the flip side of this? What do you take away for the Chargers?
I mean, they looked really good in the second half, man. And the Chargers are really close. I thought they adjusted really well in the second half on those 2 TD drives with Herbert. I don't think the Chargers are really far away. I mean, I don't think this is their year, but I think this team is really going to be dangerous. I just love the foundation of everything the Chargers have laid out for themselves. On offense, you don't have to worry about the 2 tackle spots, and those are the most 2 important positions when you have a franchise quarterback. I know that's kind of tongue-in-cheek when I say that about the Chiefs. Again, I think the Chiefs are the anomaly. But Slater and Alt might be the best tackle duo in football. I love Joe Alt. I thought he maybe should have been in consideration as the number 2 pick off the board with how confident I was in him being a star. He is. When you have your tackle spots held down and Justin Herbert, you got a good foundation. But I love the identity of this team. They don't lean too much on Herbert. They try to get the running game going. And I like their defense too. I think their defense is a little misleading with how good they are in points per game right now. But the pass rush is star-studded at the top, right, with guys like Mack and Bosa, and they've got depth there. In the middle of the field, I know he was one of Theo's favorite prospects. Shout out friend of the show, Theo Ash. Diane Henley was one of Theo's favorite prospects in the draft a couple of years back when he came out of Washington State because of his end-to-end speed. That guy is a real difference maker. Derwin James is still impactful. Their secondary, considering the injury to Asante Samuel at the start of the year, has been really, really good without him at the top. And so the Chargers are still in my top 10, and credit to them for putting together 2 big drives. I mean, they're only a couple of plays away, and that is what's kind of funny about all these losses. Every team feels like they are a play or 2 away from knocking down the defending champion Chiefs. LA's really close. I don't think this is their year, but I think they're stamped as a playoff team. They're stamped in my top 10 right now. And I think it's a testament to Harbaugh that he can come into any spot
Yeah.
and win games and do it immediately. I didn't think the turnaround was going to be this quick. I had them as a 7-win team coming into this year. I didn't think they were talented enough to outperform that. And they are. And they're down skill position guys, too, in this game. Not just Ladd McConkey, but J.K. Dobbins.
Mm-hmm.
The Chargers are really close. I think they're a real contender next year. I think this year is they're building up to the crescendo. I think next year, I think the Chargers will be bona fide real deal contenders in the AFC. I think they're going to be there.
This felt like an extremely Chargers game where you think about some of the games where they faced off against really good teams this year, and they just don't quite have enough offensively. If that's the first game against Kansas City, if that's the game against Baltimore. And actually in the second half, they were humming, dude. I mean, they had 17 points on 3 second-half drives. They scored every time they touched the ball. They got 2 touchdowns. It's just they couldn't touch the ball at the end, and they did get off to a really slow start to this game. The receiving core is limited, and Ladd is easily the best guy in that group. And they like to run the ball a lot, but they don't run the ball very efficiently. So it does end up resting on Herbert's shoulders. And I thought he was really, really impressive in the second half. I mean, I thought he was making some of those elite level throws that only a few guys in football can make in terms of the raw arm talent, the velocity, but also the ball placement. He was phenomenal. He was putting these balls where only his guys could get them in some really tight windows, but they dug themselves a hole and they didn't get a chance to win it at the end. But I did think this was a really nice showing from the Chargers defense. I thought the secondary was really good, and it's been an excellent pass defense all year. And I thought that they really got a lot of pressure, especially when you consider even down on that final drive, they got pressure on those key third downs. Pat just did his thing. He just did his superstar, I'm going to negate this pressure and I'm going to find the open receiver and extend the play with my legs kind of stuff that obviously he's done as well as anybody in NFL history. And that's what gets them the win. But we've talked about it. I feel similarly about the Chargers as I have basically since early in the season. They're a good defense. They have an elite quarterback, but they do kind of have to try to grind out these games because of lack of explosiveness for them. And, you know, they don't have the Chiefs black magic factor. So for a regular team who's trying to follow that model, you get to 8-5. You don't get to 12-1, but great win for the Chiefs. Here's the incredible achievement in all of this. 9th straight division title, dude. And that is an Andy Reid stat, because obviously that goes back to the Alex Smith days. Reid and Spags, I don't think there's any question that they're the best offensive play caller, defensive play caller duo in football.
Reid's a top 5 coach ever. I mean,
absolutely.
I think it's stamped.
I mean, he might be number 2, dude. Shout out to Shula, but
Chuck Noll, Tom Landry,
elite results you've seen across completely different situations, completely different offensive course. I just think he's the best offensive mind ever. So I think if Bill is the best defensive mind ever, and then Andy is the best offensive mind ever.
I agree. In 2 different eras with 2 different franchises with different personnel. I mean, he was just as successful, obviously not in the playoffs, with Alex Smith. You know, in 2013, he takes over a 2-14 team and immediately turns them around, right? Todd Haley ran them into the ground. He takes over, bam. And I think the whole league kind of knew that when Philadelphia let him go. I agree with you, man. I think he is the greatest offensive coach ever. And I think there's an argument. He might be number 2, man. I'd have to really chew on it for a minute, but I think there's a good argument there.
He's got the longevity too. I mean, he's got the longevity to go up against the Shulas and the Belichicks. I mean, if you're going to make a George Halas take, all right, I'll sit here. I'll hear it. You want to make a Paul Brown take? All right, I'll hear it out. But if we're going post-merger, I think that those are the big 3. And I think I'd probably take Andy number 2. But Logan, you mentioned Kansas City Chiefs in their pursuit of the 1 seed. They got 2 big wins today because they won their football game against the Chargers and the Bills lost their football game against the other LA team, the Rams. This happens in spite of the fact that Josh Allen had 6 touchdowns, 424 total yards of offense in the game, and the Bills put up 42 points because they allowed 44. How are you feeling about Buffalo after this game?
Not good. I'm going to turn it over to you, Carson. I mean, I thought this was an embarrassing defensive performance. They allow 457 total yards of offense. They lose the time of possession battle 38-21. Matt Stafford picked apart this defense. Anytime they brought pressure, he was killing them. My big takeaway for this game, Carson, the most alarming aspect of this wasn't how Buffalo got marched on. To me, it was the fact that Buffalo didn't make any adjustments. And that's what really irritated me. Great teams, when this is happening, you're going to change something. You're going to make an adjustment to what you're running to counter it. And there wasn't. I don't. This is as bad as the defensive performance I can remember in the Josh Allen era. I mean, they were your number one team last week, correct?
No, number two. I have the Lions number one. I've had the Lions number one.
I mean, you're the Buffalo insider, man. How are you feeling about their lofty expectations this year?
So I don't actually agree with the no adjustments point. I thought that we saw in the second half the Bills were going man more often. That's the thing. It didn't work. Nothing worked. I thought that they started bringing pressure more often. They were blitzing more, which isn't characteristic of this defense. But here's the bottom line. Josh Allen, to me, is the best quarterback in football right now. And even as the biggest believer in his talents for so long, I've never said that. You can't find any record of me saying I think Josh Allen is better than Patrick Mahomes, because I think Mahomes had the highest quarterback peak in NFL history. I'm telling you right now, I believe this version of Josh Allen is the best quarterback in football. He is in such complete control of every single game. He does not take negative plays. He is the best quarterback in football at avoiding sacks. He has 7 turnovers in 13 games. And that's been the only argument that there's ever been against Josh being the best quarterback in football, right? It is that, okay, you trust the decision-making of a Mahomes a little bit more. You do still have that lingering concern in the back of your mind about a Josh Allen turnover. And as phenomenal as he's been in the playoffs, and as efficient as he's been, and as few turnovers as he's had in those big spots, we talked about it, but since 2020, 26 total touchdowns to 6 turnovers in the playoffs. Nevertheless, you just have a bit more faith in Pat in that regard. And I understand it, but this version of Josh Allen has just mastered the game intellectually. And I think he is the best third down quarterback in football. The Chiefs have the number 1 third down offense this year, but the Bills have been number 1 3 of the last 4 years. I think that Josh, because of his dual threat, is the one guy who I want most there. That same thing applies for short yardage situations. Same thing applies for red zone situations. And I thought that this was the best game that he has played all season. I thought this was the best game anybody has played all season, dude. I thought this was an actual superhero performance. He had 424 of the Bills' 445 yards. Logan, 95% of their total yardage came from Josh Allen. This was in a game when everybody else combined for 21 rushing yards. He was still without both Dalton Kincaid and Keon Coleman, and he led the Bills to become the first team ever to score 42 points, to average more than 8 yards per play, to have 0 turnovers in a game, and lose. And I think as much as I leave this game thinking, okay, Josh is the best quarterback in football, I think he's the best player in football, I've never been more confident in him. This is absolutely the best version of Josh. At the same time, it's a loss. And this is just a story that we've seen too many times in his career, because several of the best games Josh has ever played, Logan, have been losses. You think about last year against the Eagles, where we can do the same thing. We can recite all these stats. Oh, they're the first team ever to have 500 plus total yards and 13 third down conversions and 0 interceptions and lose. The 2021 divisional game against the Kansas City Chiefs. Oh my God, it's the greatest game a quarterback has ever played, in a loss. And this is, to me, the scariest thing about Josh Allen's career, because it has been the reason that he doesn't have a Super Bowl up to this point. And to me, it is the single thing that will determine whether or not he can do it this year, whether or not he can do it going forward. Can this defense not let him down, not fail him in a huge game? Because since 2020, Logan, the Bills aren't just by far number 1 in regular season points per game. They're number 1 in playoff points per game among all teams that have played at least 5 playoff games. And what have we seen? We've seen these historic performances end in losses, even last year, right? I mean, Josh was phenomenal. I was at that game. Pat was also phenomenal, but the Bills ultimately just couldn't hang defensively when they needed to. And I thought that this game was a disaster defensively across the board. It was also amazing offensively from the Rams, and I want to give them a ton of credit, and we'll get to that. But I just can't ignore that this is another Bills defensive failure in a huge spot. Because, Logan, I mentioned the Bills are the number 1 playoff offense since 2020. You know what has been the common theme in all of their playoff losses? Defensive breakdowns. They have allowed 33.5 points per game in their playoff losses. No one quarterback in NFL history wills you to a Super Bowl on his own, man. Tom Brady didn't do it. Brady had elite defenses for 2 decades. He won a Super Bowl when he scored 13 points because the other team scored 3. Patrick Mahomes had the best defense in football last year when he won the Super Bowl, right? It is not an accomplishment that any one man can just will you to, no matter how great they are. And the Bills are going to put together a good regular season defense. We see that time and again. But in those big playoff spots, they just haven't delivered. And I get this is just one regular season game, but to me, it's like the biggest red flag.
It's a microcosm.
It's a reflection of the biggest concern, the biggest red flag that this team has. Actually, both of them, that being defense and coaching. We'll get to coaching in a minute. But it just feels like every time that I start to believe in a Bills defense, that I start to build back that trust, they just have a disaster class like this. I thought that they were terrible against the run, and the run defense has been a problem. I know that the Rams don't end up being super efficient on the ground, but they were pounding the ball on the ground. And that is what every team is going to look to do against the Buffalo Bills. And the Rams have really struggled to run the ball this year, especially in some recent weeks. And they were able to get a lot of what they wanted on the ground. And as significant as that, they just kept the Bills off the field. I mean, the Bills didn't just put up 42 points, man. They did it with 21 minutes of time of possession. You give Josh Allen one more time with the ball in his hands, you get one more stop. The Bills are winning this game. I mean, they were not stopping Josh Allen in this Bills offense. They scored touchdowns on their last 4 drives. So the run defense was terrible for multiple reasons. And fundamentally, I just think that Sean McDermott's scheme is a problem in these matchups. This is what we've seen against Joe Burrow, against Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs. You play these soft zones, you buy into the bend, don't break thing, and that's great. That works against inferior offenses and quarterbacks who aren't great decision makers and don't read the game at an extremely high level. But against a Matt Stafford, dude, he's just going to pick you apart. And that's what he did in this game. And then in the second half, they did start playing more man. But Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp were just too good. I mean, they just kept consistently winning. And especially once Rasul Douglas went down, the Bills didn't have the corners who could hang with these guys. And I was really disappointed by that because they were struggling with Rasul in the game. And I've considered the corners a big strength of this team. Taron Johnson, Christian Benford, and Rasul have been really good. And they just got completely outplayed by an elite receiver duo in this game. And then the Bills started bringing some more blitzes and they just got outthought. And there were several spots where Stafford just sees that they're bringing pressure and pre-snap. He checks into a better counter. He checks into a very quick pass. He checks into a screen. That's what happened on the play that basically clinched this game. I mean, actually the Bills score one more touchdown after it, but when the Rams get their final points on the board, he literally just checks into a screen to Puka Nacua, and it's the most predictable thing on the planet. And I don't understand how the Bills aren't prepared to adjust defensively when they see an audible like that. And when it's clear that Stafford knows that they're bringing heat and it's not a disguise, it's not a simulated pressure. That's actually what they're doing. It's just so frustrating and nothing worked defensively. And as I said, defense and coaching are going to be what determines if this team can win the Super Bowl because Josh is playing out of his mind. I expect Josh to outplay anybody in football. And if you put 1% of this loss on Josh Allen, I just don't think you have any credibility. I mean, this is a historic performance. He's the first player ever to have 3 passing touchdowns and 3 rushing touchdowns in a single football game. Was he literally perfect? He missed a couple throws. He missed an open Khalil Shakir early in this game. He missed a throw actually on third down on the final drive. It ended up not mattering because then they converted on fourth. But he did so much above and beyond superhuman stuff. Unbelievable ball placement on completions to Mac Hollins for a touchdown, on a completion to Amari Cooper, just fitting it right over the shoulder of the DB. He was so unbelievable as a scrambler, 80-plus rushing yards in this game. To me, that stuff was so superhuman that, yeah, I would say that he played a perfect game because even if there were 1 or 2 missed opportunities, he made up for it by doing so many things in this game that no other quarterback on the planet can do. But the defense lets him down and the coaching lets him down. So I do want to ask you specifically about that aspect of it, Logan. Sean McDermott, 2 big decisions in the final few minutes of this game. I want to ask you about both of them. Let's start with the decision to accept the penalty, the holding penalty, when it was 3rd and 7. The Rams would have been at a 55-yard field goal if the Bills had accepted or had declined that penalty, put it at a 4th and 7. What do you think was the right call there?
If I was the coach, I would have declined the penalty. 1, because I would have wanted the clock to stop, but 2, because I just didn't want the Rams to get another shot at the play.
Yeah.
More importantly, just because I thought honestly the Rams might get the first down and they end up getting it, but they get it in 2 plays, right?
Right.
I would have declined that penalty.
I would have declined the penalty as well. First of all, I think make him kick a 55-yarder, right? That's not a particularly high percentage kick. Maybe that's 50-50.
And you're guaranteeing you get the ball back, right?
you get the ball back no matter what is the biggest thing. You get the ball back with 4 minutes, 40 seconds. And maybe the Rams still would have gone on 4th and 7 because they went on 4th and 5. I don't think so personally. I think those 2 yards make enough of a difference. And I understand the conventional thought is, hey, it's 3rd and 17. They're not going to convert here. And it's a hell of a lot easier if we only need a field goal instead of if we need a touchdown. But with how this game had gone, the Bills had one stop in this entire football game, Logan. So if I am Sean McDermott, I'm just thinking, I'm taking my win. I'm taking my stop. I am getting my defense the hell off the field. I am not leaving the door open for any more nonsense, for any Matt Stafford magic, or just for my defense to collapse one more time. And I'm saying, make this hard field goal. If you don't, then we're in the best position possible. And even if you do, fine. We scored touchdowns on 3 straight drives. We have 5 minutes to do it. We're going to go out there. We're going to put the ball in Josh Allen's hands. We're going to win this football game. I thought that was the wrong decision. The next one, running the QB sneak on 1st and goal from the 1 on the Bills' final drive, down 9, and then calling a timeout when that was unsuccessful. How would you have handled that situation?
Like Tom Brady said on the broadcast, I would have thrown the ball 3 times there, or I would have just had Josh drop into shotgun and make the decision, right? I thought it was more important to preserve time on the clock and to keep all 3 of your timeouts. So, because they were saying on the broadcast, they were saying something along the lines of, you're going to kick this ball off to the other side of the field. And I thought that was nonsensical from the jump. I would have onside kicked regardless, but I would have tried my best to make sure that we had 3 timeouts. So if we don't get it, there is still an opportunity to force the Rams off the field. So I thought both of those were miscues by Sean McDermott.
Yeah, the onside kick aspect is difficult because the Bills were so bad defensively. And like my thought would just be, hey, I would rather take an 8% chance of converting this onside kick. And then the problem is you're really compromising your field position, right? Because if you just get a conventional stop and they have to punt from their own 30 or 35, you're going to get the ball in a much better spot than if they're punting from your 40. Then you're pinned and you have best case scenario, a minute 10 to drive the length of the field or drive into field goal range. So I definitely get that. And I believe that the analytics probably would favor punting there, but this game, the Bills were just so incapable of getting a stop that I buy the argument that you go for the onside kick either way, but you need your 3 timeouts. You absolutely need your 3 timeouts. That's non-negotiable. I actually don't even think the Bills needed to throw all 3 times. I was fine with the sneak call because my thought is that's an 80% conversion. I mean, Josh is just such a monster on those generally. And actually, the Bills were 2 of 3 on those exact plays coming into that moment in the game. Where I think they really made the mistake is with the use of the timeout. I think what you do is you clock it. I think you spike the ball, right? I mean, how long is it going to take you to get set? Nobody's moving. There's no personnel changes. You're all in the same spot. 7 seconds? Take 7 seconds? I mean, I would absolutely rather take up those 7 seconds than burn a timeout when that is clinching your fate because now you need the onside kick, which is just such a low percentage thing. I thought that's where it went wrong. I didn't mind the sneak call. I thought the use of the timeout was terrible. And this is the thing, man. I just don't trust Sean McDermott in these spots. I don't trust his scheme defensively in these high stakes games against elite defenses. I know you can recite the regular season numbers to me. He's a good regular season defensive coach. It has not translated in the biggest moments. And I don't trust him situationally. I think he's bad with timeouts. I think he's bad with challenges. I think that his determinations in terms of how aggressive the Bills should be in certain spots, how they should manage these things. Like, I just think he consistently misses. And so people can look and they can say, oh, well, the Bills win 11 plus games every single year. That's incredible. You can't fire a coach with that resume. They win 11 plus games every year because they have Josh Allen. And McDermott deserves credit for the regular season defenses. But aren't you trying to aim higher? Your goal is to win a Super Bowl because you're in those conversations every single year because you have Josh Allen. And is a good regular season, bad playoff, bad big moment coach the guy who's going to get you there? I certainly don't think he's the guy you should be betting on. Maybe the Bills can overcome it, but to me, that's what they'd be doing. I think they'd be overcoming Sean McDermott. We've seen in so many big moments that, like his heroes, Logan, this man is a terrorist. He's a terrorist to the Buffalo Bills. And I just thought that this was a terrible, terrible showing from him.
Carson is having his Mike Tomlin arc right now.
No, dude. No. Not at all. Did somebody say that or did you say that?
No, I was just saying that as a goof. I mean that facetiously. I hope that comes across. Like, I think Mike Tomlin is a great coach. I think Sean McDermott's a bald idiot, but
Both William and Mary legends.
True, they were. I think they were teammates, if I'm
They
not
were.
mistaken. Another crazy stat about this game from Josh. There have been 42 quarterbacks who have thrown or had 6 total TDs in a game. They're 34-8 in those games. Josh is a part of the 8 who have somehow lost a game after putting up 6 TDs in a game. So I've got 2 things. One, blame pie, like just percentage-wise. Are there any specific players you want to earmark? Like, how much of this do you put on the defense? How much do you put this on McDermott? What are we doing percentage-wise?
Man, I mean, I think that basically the entire defense was bad in this game. I mean, I do think we see the Bills are a little bit light up front, and that can be a problem. The Rams' offensive line, I thought, played really well, but I don't consider that an elite offensive line, so that's not a great sign. I would put it mostly on the secondary because I thought, honestly, I was more disappointed with the pass defense. I expect teams when they really commit to be able to run the ball on the Bills, and that sucks, but it is what it is. But when you are just getting burnt, I mean, Puka was open on every single big play, every time he needed to be. That to me is hugely problematic. So I don't know that you can totally separate the struggles from scheme because, again, the zone is getting picked apart. The Bills live in nickel. They live in these lighter packages, which makes it easier to run on them. That's McDermott and Bobby Babbage stuff. So I would say probably just 70% on the defense overall, 30% maybe on McDermott decision-making, 0% on the offense.
Yeah, and then to follow up to that, one, you were talking about Josh and overcoming defenses, and the only quarterback that I could think off the top of my head that is literally in one season overcome a bad defense to win a Super Bowl is Drew Brees in 2009. Brees won the Super Bowl with the number 20 ranked scoring defense that year, which when you look through like the history of the NFL, there's just normal boxes that you have to check, and that's you normally need to be top 10 on both sides of the ball, or you need a top 5 defense and a good enough offense, right? That's traditionally the formula. But you're exactly right. Like Aaron Rodgers, I always recite this stat. Aaron Rodgers, in all of his years in Green Bay, had one number 1 defense. It was the year he won the Super Bowl. Surprise, surprise, right? Tom Brady, almost all 20 years of his career in New England and some in Tampa Bay, had a top-notch defense. Considering that this has kind of become the Bills' reputation, the defense letting them down, this being the side, like, I guess a 2-part question. One, do you think the Bills have hit a wall? And 2, if you think you've hit a wall, are you at wit's end with Sean McDermott? I mean, I know you've had games a year ago where you were at wit's end. Is this just adding on to the misery, to the fire McDermott pile?
I mean, it's just the same old shit, man. And I feel like sometimes things go well enough for 7 weeks that I can kind of suppress it, and then it just comes back up inevitably again. I think Sean McDermott is who he is. I don't think he's going to change. I don't think that the Bills organization is ever going to be harsh enough on him, though. I mean, I think that the Bills have suffered through so many bad years that to fire a coach who has won 11 plus games for 5 straight years and has won 5 straight division titles, like, I think that's kind of inconceivable to the Pagulas, and we've seen that with the extension.
Syndrome.
I don't think it's Stockholm syndrome, man. I just think it's hard to fire a coach when you're winning like that, but you're not winning these high stakes games, certainly because of the coach. Do I think the Bills have hit a wall? I think this is the best Bills team yet. I do. And the reason I think that is I don't think Josh has ever been better. I don't think the play calling has ever been better. I don't think the offense has ever been more balanced, even though the run game did let him down in this game. And this was just Josh superhero. We haven't seen the offense at full strength. They're still averaging almost 31 points per game, and they've been banged up all year, or at least early in the season when they were healthier. They didn't have Amari Cooper. So we haven't seen all 4 of the top weapons who I think complement each other really well. And in terms of defensive talent, I still think this is probably the best Bills defense. I mean, you look at DeMar Hamlin, he's a problem. He got burnt in this game by Demarcus Robinson. He always has a few tough plays per game. But I do think the corners are the best. They were bad today, but like I haven't just abandoned my faith in them. I think the linebackers are the best they've been. I love Terrell Bernard. I love Matt Milano. The defensive line, I think, is good. So, like, I don't know what to do with this defense, man, because like they do normally produce good results. And my thought is just if they can one time sustain their regular season level one time, the Bills would probably be the Super Bowl frontrunner with what they're doing offensively right now. And that's what I'll say, Logan. You mentioned the Drew Brees example. There's two regular season defenses that won the Super Bowl that stand out in my mind because they were not good regular season defenses. And that's the Saints in 2009, and that's the Colts in 2006, who were actually the number 23 scoring defense.
That's an anomaly of a stat because when Bob Sanders was healthy, they were actually the number 2 scoring defense in football.
That's a very good point. And the other point that I was going to make is they were actually very good in the playoffs. They held opposing teams to 16 points per game in the playoff run. Same goes for the Saints. Saints held the Colts to 17, and they had a defensive touchdown in the Super Bowl. So, like, the Bills are the exact opposite of that because they are a good regular season defense, and then they fall apart, whereas those defenses elevated and actually became a strength in the playoff run. So I'm never going to count the Bills out because I think Josh is that special, and I do think he's the best quarterback on the planet right now. And the defensive talent is there, but I don't know, man. I just can't get this feeling out of my head. Like, I'm not going to go out there and say, oh, they can't beat Kansas City. I don't believe that at all. They just beat Kansas City. I absolutely believe that they are capable of that. I think their ceiling is higher than Kansas City's. But I just have like this sick feeling that I've experienced too many times where Josh does everything he possibly can to win a football game, and it is the defense that fails him. And I think Josh is too great, and I think one year the defense is going to be good enough, and that breakthrough is going to happen. And maybe it's this year, because the defense had been on a really good run, but just like, God, this is one of those performances where they're just helpless. They're completely helpless. They cannot get off the field. And that was brutal. It was just brutal to watch.
Did you see when Peyton Manning and who was that guy in Dumb and Dumber? What's his name? Jeff Daniels.
Yeah.
Did you see that segment where they went to Detroit and they filled up that bathtub and they had like a seance, or not a seance, that's not the right word, but like they exorcised the demons in Detroit. They got rid of the Bobby Lane curse.
You're saying we need to kill Sean McDermott. I'm there.
With extra steps. Honestly, not your worst idea.
Well, I think he would admire it. I think if we went about it the right way, if it involved a plan, I was going to say, he'd really like it.
If we came up with a really good idea that had, a really good plan with teamwork involved, maybe like 4 guys in a plane and a hijack.
That's all that matters to him.
Yeah, I think Sean would really admire that.
So, what do you think? Do you think the Bills have hit a wall? Is this a deeply concerning performance to you?
All I'll say is, with teams in football, Carson, you know how all the time we talk about kickers and it's a vibes thing, right? You're a vibes guy. Like, do I feel like you're going to make the kick when you step up? Well, Tucker, no, right? Tyler Bass, I get a little squirrely. Chris Boswell, rock solid. I feel like he's going to make everything, no matter where he's on the field.
You're rock solid for sure.
I do like me some Chris Boswell.
Who doesn't?
The thing with the Chiefs is their reputation is they win every tight ball game, no matter the circumstances. They're going to find a way to pull it out. And unfortunately, the Buffalo Bills have this Dallas Cowboys-esque reputation where in the biggest moments or the biggest games of their season, they crap their pants. That's what I'm afraid of. You talk about this sinking feeling that you get with Buffalo every single time when they get your hopes up. That's what I'm afraid of. I'm afraid of, and that's why I haven't bought in on Buffalo or removed Kansas City from number 1. I have this sinking feeling in my balls that the Bills are going to let us down on the biggest stage because that is what they have done. And they didn't do it against the Chiefs, but against Baltimore. They got smacked in the freaking mouth. The Rams smacked them in the mouth today. I'm not saying that they're not talented to do it because it goes against logic. I think the Bills are a really great team on paper. And I always will have some modicum or level of faith in the Bills because they have Josh Allen. And Josh Allen is the man. And I would never bet against Josh Allen. But their reputation right now is that not Josh Allen, this team can't pull their weight. And that's what scares me the most about Buffalo is I just don't want to see it again in the playoffs. I don't want the Bills to run the rest of this season. And then round 1 or round 2 of the playoffs, Josh Allen has another masterpiece and the team around him falls apart. I'm just afraid of the narratives that are going to build up again about Josh and about this
fuck the narratives, bro. The narratives already don't make any sense. I mean, people are completely deluded. Not all people, of course. The way people talk about Josh Allen is absurd. I mean, I still have people saying, well, normally, actually, Josh turns the ball over and he costs him the game. Josh is 26th in turnovers this year. Okay. It doesn't happen. He's playing perfect football out there week after week. And people just don't see it. I don't know if people don't watch. People just hate him. But I don't care about that at all, man. And I think we've seen the only way to defeat that. It doesn't matter how you play individually. People don't understand that aspect. You got to win a Super Bowl. I mean, it's like, look at what happened with Jokic in the NBA, right? He was the most overrated player until he ran through the field. And his team beat everybody. His team was healthy finally. He had a good team around him. That's going to have to be the same thing with Josh if the narrative's going to meaningfully change. I think smart people understand who Josh is. But when we're talking about a national discourse, I think that's the only way to vanquish it. And that's going to be on the defense. And that's going to be on McDermott. It's not going to be on Josh. Josh has been amazing.
I agree with that fundamentally. So I guess narratives aside, what I'm trying to get at with all this is I don't like the vibes in Buffalo. And Buffalo scares me more than any other team that they could just crap their pants in a big spot.
Okay.
That's I understand if you don't feel that way, but that's the reputation of this team to me, Carson. And
you're saying it more broadly than I think I would for sure. Because it's just the defense. I mean, as I said, the Bills are the number one playoff offense since 2020.
This has zero to do with Josh. It's everybody else. It's never been a Josh Allen thing. It never has. It's everybody freaking else.
I know, but it's just one side of the ball. I mean, the offense is going to be amazing. And that is all because of Josh, but it's not like I worry about other aspects of this offense. It's just the defense and it's McDermott. But I don't know. Maybe I'm higher on the Bills than you. Because even though I'm so upset watching a game like this where the defense is this bad, I also don't think it erases all the great stuff that the Bills have done, and that I do think this is the best offense they've had and the best Josh they've had. And to me, the best team they've had, and that Kansas City is more vulnerable than they've ever been. And nobody else in the conference is up to the Bills level. So I don't even know if I'd move them in my power rankings, but it's just gut-wrenching when they lose in the same ways in spite of Josh's greatness. That's just what I hate to watch, and that's what happened.
Who do you trust less, the Eagles or the Bills?
I trust the Eagles less. I mean, the big difference, I think it's crazy to compare the Bills to the Cowboys. The Bills have the most playoff wins. They're tied of anybody outside of the Chiefs in the last 5 years.
Well,
and they have the most regular season wins of anybody outside of the Chiefs. And the reason that I have so much more faith is because they have Josh Allen. It's a complete difference from the Dallas Cowboys.
The reason I make that comp is just I think you're taking that a little more apples to apples, a little more straight up than I mean. When I say that, I mean they're the same teams that, we're going to build up. We're going to get the roller coaster. We're building it all the way up. And wham. They just
that's a crazy comparison to me.
I'm just saying,
they build the Bills
they build you up. I'm not saying this year, because this year the Dallas Cowboys shit their pants from week one. It's what they always do, and I could have told you before the season started it was going to happen. But what I'm saying is, normally with the Dallas Cowboys, build you up, and it comes crashing down. And the Bills, I feel like they do the same exact shit. They build us all, and it's not Josh, it's the rest of the team. And like you said, it's the defense. But I feel like the Bills build you up, buy in, best team in football. Wham, here's a haymaker for you.
I just think that's crazy. I mean, they've been the second best team in football over the last 5 years. Their only flaw, well, the defense has let them down, has been being 5% less of a great football team than Kansas City.
My thing is just that people get on the Chiefs for winning the way they do. The Bills make me mad because they lose the way they do. They lose in such mind-boggling ways, in beatdowns. And I get this isn't a beatdown because Josh Allen
they don't
keeps
lose
you in
beatdowns. They don't lose.
It's not, but it's because Josh keeps you in
Except for the Ravens game.
I'm just saying the demoralizing defense aspects where it's
their losses hurt. Their losses are gut-wrenching.
And that's what I'm getting at, is the way the Cowboys lose when they get fucking pummeled is the way I feel when the Bills lose in these just demoralizing ways. That's what I mean. That's what I mean.
Because one is being super close. The Bills lose because they're as close as possible, and then something goes wrong, and that's the difference. The Cowboys have lost in the playoffs because they just embarrass themselves and they get completely outplayed. I feel like they're very different. I still really do.
I'm just saying they
like a lot about this Bills team. I mean, their flaw has been that they haven't been the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, the Chiefs have beaten them in 3 of the last 4 postseasons, twice at the last second. And That's an incredibly high bar that the Chiefs have set. But like I said, I think that this Chiefs team is the weakest that we've seen in the last few years. I think this Bills team should be the best, but this was definitely a rough showing. How would you feel about them just real quick heading into the Lions game next week? Biggest game of the year remaining for the Bills, because after that, it's the Jets and the Patriots twice. What's your expectation?
Josh Allen plays well. Ben Johnson beats that ass, and they run the ball all game on Buffalo.
Yeah. I think it's probably going to be like 38-35 Detroit. I just don't
I
see how
think
the Bills
Josh can
stop
go
that
toe to
run
toe with
game.
any. Yeah, but I think
He can.
Monty and Jameer are probably going to eat.
It's a particularly bad matchup for the Bills, considering they are light up front and they do play lighter boxes and lighter personnel groupings in general. And the Lions are the most bruising, physically dominant team in the trenches in football. But it's like you said, I mean, I think Josh can beat anybody. I expect Josh to outplay anybody. It's just, can this defense, can McDermott hold up their end of the bargain? That's it. That's everything for this team. That's everything. All right, let's move on, Logan. Let's talk about the Rams, actually, for God's sakes, before we move on from this game. I mean, what did you take away for them from this? I mean, phenomenal win, obviously.
Man, I'm just frustrated that the Rams can't put it together more consistently. One, we were talking about the Bills getting decimated on the ground. I do want to give a lot of credit to the Rams for one, how they committed to the ground game, but two, the nuance in their ground game and all the different creative looks that they gave. If it was a end around to Puka, right? If it was a fake end around, right? When you kind of have the opposing team's defense, by the balls, the way the Rams kind of did running the ball early in this game, you're just setting up stuff for later in the game, right? When you're not actually giving the ball to Nakua, but you're giving that fake look, and it hurts the defense's head. I thought they really did a good job creatively doing different stuff on the ground. And Matt Stafford is one of the, off the top of my head, top 6 or 7 guys I would want under center in the sport. When we're talking about guys and quarterbacks that can go toe-to-toe with anybody, Matthew Stafford is one of those guys. And that's why the Rams scare me in individual football games. I don't think the Rams are as good as the Bills top to bottom, even though the Rams do decimate the defense in this game. I think the Bills are a better team, but Matt Stafford is a guy that I think can go head to head and win against anybody. And I think the ground game and him were both important, but he picked them apart. Like you mentioned at the beginning, at the line of scrimmage, making adjustments, but also just making all the pinpoint throws to Kupp. And Puka balled in this game too. He had some big time catches, some hard catches, running the ball out of the backfield. And I think the defense has improved week to week. That being said, the secondary did get dived bombed on a couple of times and got cooked by Josh on some throws to Khalil Shakir. I think the defense has gotten better week to week. I think this offense is still very deadly and dangerous week in, week out. I just wish the Rams could do it a little bit more consistently. But the Rams, and this is why I picked them, I picked the Niners to win the NFC West in my preseason predictions. I picked the Rams to go to the NFC title game. And that's why, though, is because I do think the Rams are talented enough where they could go on some kind of weird fluky run and rip off 2 or 3 wins against teams. I think the Rams are in the hall of very good. They are a very good team, but they're not super consistent. And I do think this defense has a few holes. One of them, the most important one being the secondary, is their biggest glaring need. But Rams are good, and they stepped up. They came ready to play in this game, and Stafford had all the answers when they needed it. When push came to shove, man, he picked you guys apart.
Yeah, Stafford was amazing. I feel like this game was the vision, certainly for how this offense would look, right? Because the offense has been painfully inconsistent. I mean, they come into this game 16th in terms of points per drive. Like, with the talent they have, you certainly would have expected more, but they have struggled to run the ball, and they haven't super consistently, or earlier in the year didn't consistently have
They've
both
also
Kupp
been,
and Puka healthy.
I was going to say injuries have definitely played a factor.
But nevertheless, even over the last handful of weeks when they have been pretty healthy, like, they just haven't consistently come very close to hitting their ceiling. They've won 6 of their last 8, but like, there's a couple clunkers in there. But Stafford was phenomenal. I thought this was the quarterback duel of the year. I mean, Burrow-Lamar comes close because that was an amazing, amazing quarterback battle. What, do you think there's one you like more?
No, I don't know. That Burrow-Lamar game
incredible.
was nuts. I think that's probably number 1 for me.
Take your pick. Take your pick between those two. I think those are 4 ridiculous quarterback performances. But I thought that Stafford's pre-snap adjustments were fantastic. I can't think of a throw that he missed in this game where he was inaccurate. And the run game was really effective. And I mean, Kupp and Puka were just consistently winning on the outside. I mean, they were getting and ones, dude. They were getting the hoop and the harm. Like the Bills committed multiple pass interferences that the Rams completed the passes anyway. So that's what makes this team really scary. And also McVay is obviously brilliant, but they have such phenomenal top end offensive talent. And I think Stafford is so great. I mean, for me, he's easily QB6 after we go Josh, Pat, Lamar, Herbert, Burrow, then it's Stafford.
I'd have him 7.
Who do you have above him? You crazy son of a bitch. Baker Mayfield?
I think I'd have that boy Jordan Love at number 6.
Oh, you love Jordan Love. I don't know, man. I have so much faith in Stafford.
After this week, I might have to put some. It wasn't the best game from Love this week, but those are the ones that I flip between. It's either Stafford or Love for me next.
I've been Team Stafford that entire time. So do you think the Rams are the best team in the NFC West? I mean, the Seahawks win today. They beat the Cardinals, so they take lead in the division at 8-5, but the Rams are one game behind them at 7-6. Who do you think is actually the best team?
Man, as I've said before, I have literally all the NFC West teams, I think, next to one another in succession in my power rankings after you get outside of the top 10. But, well, inside the top 10, actually, it would probably be 10, 11, 12, 13. 10 for me is still Seattle, and Seattle is still top dog to me in the NFC West. Do you disagree?
The Rams scare me more.
I would agree with that. That's a great, because what I had written down is I think the Rams can throw a better punch, but I think the Seahawks are more consistent. And that's why it's not like the Seahawks are some kind of consistent juggernaut either. But the difference for me is my faith in the secondary. And I just think Seattle is more well coached on that end. And they just have more big time difference makers like Witherspoon, Woolen. Kobe Bryant's been making some plays in the secondary for Seattle recently. You know, they got Leonard Williams up front. Ernest Jones has been a good acquisition. So I think better
defense.
It's really close, and it's almost balanced out right by the Seahawks' horrid offensive line, who is like down on their. I know the Rams dealt with some offensive line injuries early in this year, but the Seahawks are now down on like their third string guys and stuff. So none of these teams are perfect. But I love me some Geno too, man. So it's very close, but I think I would go Seattle.
I would go with the Rams. I do think it's the best offense in the division. I think they have the better coach. I mean, I like Mike McDonald, but I love McVay. I have been impressed with what they've done with their defensive line. They have won 6 of their last 8 games. They have been inconsistent on both sides, and the defense had been playing better. I mean, they got eaten alive today, but I still definitely don't think it's a good defense. I mean, they came into today 28th in points allowed per drive, and they might only get worse because they let up 42 points today. I do trust the Seahawks defense a lot more, and they've been playing their best as of late. They're allowing just 18 points per game in this 4-game win streak. They're 7th in points allowed per drive overall. And I do love Geno. I love Geno. And I really like the receiving weapons. It's just the Rams scare me, and the Seahawks offensive line scares me in the other way. It scares me for their sake. It scares me for the safety of Geno Smith. I just think it's hard for me to consistently bet on a team that is that bad in terms of their offensive line. And they do rely on a lot of Geno heroics, but like when the defense is playing really well, they're a better football team. I just think I'm going to bet on that offensive ceiling with the Rams. It's hilarious, bro. I mean, I've probably at some point said that I think every team in the NFC West is the best in the division.
I agree. I think
I've never seen a division that is closer 1 through 4. Like, it's absolutely insane how close these teams are. I think I go Rams, though. And these teams are going to play head-to-head in the last week of the season. That could be for the division. Who knows? Because the Seahawks have a pretty tough remaining schedule. They have a couple of really tough games left. I think NFC North games. I want to say that they have to play the Vikings. Let's see. Who do they have left? They have to play the Packers, the Vikings, the Bears, the Rams. It's pretty tough. Pretty tough. So we'll see how that shakes out. They do have the 1-game lead, but I think I'd be more scared to face the Rams. I do want to address a couple things real quick that I saw in the chat. Number one, somebody's talking about excuses for Josh.
He had 6 touchdowns.
He didn't get the job done when it mattered most. I mean, when you score touchdowns on your last 4 drives, what are you supposed to do? is a historic offensive performance. Like, I just think that's insane.
I got an idea.
Yeah.
I've suggested this for players in the past. I think Josh should own the team. I think he should coach the team.
Yeah.
And I think they should suit him up. He should be a two-way player and also play defense. Full Jackie Moon. We'll have him in charge of the rotation, everything. That's a solution. I think that's a solution.
It just boggles my mind, dude. Boggles my mind that people can come away from this game and think Josh Allen is in any way responsible. And like, this is just a thing for all elite quarterbacks, right? Is it Joe Burrow's fault that the Bengals are 4-8 when Burrow has had the best season of his career? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Because it's all about winning games. It's all about winning games. You know,
That's
when Joe Burrow did win games in the playoffs?
That's why Jimmy Garoppolo's the GOAT.
Yeah. You know, when Joe Burrow did win games in the playoffs? It was in 2021 and 2022, and his defense was actually awesome in those postseasons. Lou Anarumo was cooking. And Evan McPherson was the GOAT in 2021 specifically. Burrow did not play his best football. Burrow's playing his best football now with his worst team. Why are the Ravens 8-5? It's not because Lamar Jackson has let them down, although he's been bad in a couple big games or hasn't been as good as they needed him to be at the least. But it's because the Ravens are 25th in terms of points per drive allowed. I just don't understand how in the year of our Lord 2024, we can't see that. When you score touchdowns on your final 4 drives and you average more than 8 yards per play and you have 424 of your team's 445 yards of offense, you did everything you could have done. I just can't be explained to me that people would put this on Josh. To me, this cements his status as the MVP frontrunner. The other thing that I saw is somebody mentioned that the Bills got blown out by the Ravens. When I said the Bills don't get blown out, I did mention that they got blown out by the Ravens, but that's their only loss by more than one score in the last 2 years. I can't imagine any other team only has one loss by multiple scores. So obviously every team has gotten blown out at some point, but the Bills get blown out less than anybody else in football. All right, we're going to take a quick break. On the other side, we're going to talk about a Sam Darnold masterclass, play a little bit of contenders or pretenders, and then touch on who we think is going to get the number 1 pick in the NFL draft after these quick words from DraftKings. Getting some holiday shopping done this weekend? Pick up some touchdowns. They're on sale at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. What else would you expect from the number 1 place to bet touchdowns?
DraftKings has doorbuster profit boots and bet one, get one promotions on all types of touchdown bets. Be sure to check the DraftKings Sportsbook app all weekend for flash deals that will have you dancing in the end zone.
Grab some TDs with DraftKings Sportsbook. They're on sale from Thanksgiving through Cyber Monday. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code NERDS to opt in. That's code NERDS only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Let's talk about this Darnold game because it was a beauty. He had 5 touchdowns in a dominant win for the Vikings, 42-21 in the Kirk Cousins return, an attempted revenge game that didn't go so well for him back facing the Vikings. Logan, with Darnold playing at this level, do you think that makes the Vikings a true Super Bowl contender?
I mean, I've been bought in on Darnold the past 3 weeks. I think he has played great football these last 4 games. Against Atlanta in this one, you mentioned it, 22 of 28, 347 yards, 5 TDs, and he was 0.7 points away from having a perfect passer rating. In his last 4 games, he's 1,158 yards, 11 touchdowns, no picks, 68% completion with a passer rating of 126.7. Obliterated the Atlanta secondary today, making plays out of the pocket. He threw some beautiful deep balls up the sideline and over the middle. The biggest thing to me about Darnold in this game and over the past 4 weeks is how unaffected and unfazed he seems by pressure. Sam Darnold is standing in the pocket and he is delivering footballs, and it doesn't matter who's around him. Like, he is playing great football. He's come up clutch in 2 of the last 4 weeks, and he has played pretty flawless football the other 2. Sam Darnold has answered every question I've had about him. This is not to say that Darnold is going to be perfect in a playoff run. This isn't to say that Darnold's not going to have, a soul-crushing moment or a bad turnover or something like that in the playoffs, right? I don't just miraculously think Sam Darnold is a top 5 quarterback in football or anything like that. But this is 4 games of damn near perfect football. Again, he has led them down on crucial drives over the past few weeks. And this one is the coup de grace. I mean, it is the cherry on top Yeah. Sam Darnold was the biggest question mark for me about the Vikings, and he's answering that. Like, he is a plus for them. He is winning them games right now. And, I mean, you look at this team, top to bottom, like, elite defense, really well coached, right? Immense pressure, a ton of talent on that end. Van Ginkel, Grenard, Cashman in the middle, right? Playmakers in the secondary. And on offense, right, this is the optimal, the ideal situation for any quarterback, not just Sam Darnold, but Kevin O'Connell is a brilliant offensive mind who it seems that any quarterback he puts under center is going to be set up for success. And it's not just because of the scheme, it's because of the immense amount of talent that Minnesota possesses. They've got a good offensive line, not great. I'll give them credit. I thought they played pretty poorly in the first half in protecting Darnold. Second half, I thought they played a lot better in protecting him. But it's the skill position, guys. It's the fact that you have Justin Jefferson, who is the best receiver, I think, in this century. I don't know. I mean, like, you could. I mean, I don't. The peak that Jefferson is at, I think week to week, it doesn't matter who you put in front of the guy. Like, he is going to eat. So you've got that guy, an all-time receiving talent. Jordan Addison is a money number 2. TJ Hawkinson is one of the best receiving tight ends still in football. Aaron Jones is a phenomenal dual threat. Like, the Vikings just don't have any holes. And if their biggest question mark is Sam Darnold, I'm cool with it. I do think the Vikings are a Super Bowl contender. I've been there with them. It took me a minute. I'm not going to act like I was planting the flag for Minnesota from the start of the year. I wasn't. It took me about half this season to get there with Minnesota, to move them into my top 5. But they've been there, and they're going to stay there. I wholeheartedly believe Minnesota is a real deal Super Bowl contender. And when we're looking at the NFC from last year to this year, I think the NFC is a lot tougher, man. I think it's cutthroat. And it's going to be dangerous trying to get through there this year. Yeah, I think Minnesota's a Super Bowl contender, man.
Yeah, the NFC is really good this year, and I think that you don't have the Niners obviously close to what they were last year, but I think the Lions are comparable as like a juggernaut, and then I think that the Eagles are better than the Lions last year, who were the second best team in the NFC, and then you have the whole NFC West, which is pretty strong. Obviously, I think the Vikings are really good. I think the Packers are really good, and the Commanders are solid, but it's definitely a stronger NFC overall, but the Vikings are the third team to me, and I think they've been number 5 overall in my power rankings for the last several editions. Like, I've pretty much stayed steady on the fact that I don't think that they have the elite talent that the Eagles and the Lions do, but I think that in terms of being a complete football team, they're as good as anybody after the Lions and Eagles, who I don't want to make it sound like I think they're in a different tier from the Chiefs and Bills, because I don't at all. It's just the Bills and Chiefs have the superhero quarterback factor make up for being not as talented as the Lions and the Eagles.
Also, I don't know if you'd agree with me on this, but I think the big difference between those teams, I think they're all in a similar level of talent, but I think the difference between Minnesota and Detroit and Philly is the offensive line. I think Philly and Detroit just have like world-class offensive lines.
Yeah, they're insane there, and that's a good point. I do think that's a big difference, but Darnold has been really impressive, and he let some big-time throws rip today, man, and he throws a pretty ball. I think Herbert probably throws the prettiest ball in football, and I think that Darnold is like
Jordan Love.
Sneaky. All right, Jordan Love, you just love that off the back foot moon ball. I just think Herbert throws ropes, but Darnold kind of throws ropes too when he needs to. And I also thought he was just in complete control in this football game, as he was down the stretch last week in the comeback against the Cardinals. But again, it's some of those big time throws. I mean, a deep ball to Jettis on the run, and Jettis is wide open, but he's still got to get the ball 40 yards downfield as he's moving around. 2 different bombs to Jordan Addison, both of them under some legitimate pressure into like kind of tight windows. All year, I've said for Darnold that the standard is Jared Goff if the Vikings are going to be a real, true Super Bowl contender. And right now, he's playing at that level, right? I don't trust him as much as a Goff overall, not quite as much, but it's not that big of a gap. So Darnold had his worst performance of the year against the Colts, right, where he gives you 3 picks, and that was concerning, even though they found a way to persevere and win that game. But the response since then has been phenomenal. And I think that this is a very solid starting quarterback. I don't think he's somebody who holds this team back. Now, in a great big playoff game against an awesome team, like you probably are going to need some big moments from your quarterback. And that's somewhat of a question with all these elite NFC teams, because none of those guys, Hurts, Love, Goff, are at that elite level. Wait, I did not mean to say Love. I meant to say Hurts, Goff, Darnold. Love, I think, is much closer to that elite level, because I would have him as a top 8 quarterback. But it's a question for all these teams. I don't think it's significantly more so of a question with Minnesota than it is the Eagles and Detroit. I think it's more of a question, but not like way more of a question. And I kind of just feel like a lot of people have been wanting to declare that the Vikings are overrated or somewhat fraudulent. And I really don't think they are at all. I think that they're awesome. They're 4th in point differential. They're 9th in scoring offense. They're a top 5 scoring defense. They've got a lot of good wins this year. They have no bad losses. Their losses were incredibly close to the Lions and a close game to the Rams. They're a very balanced offensive attack between the run and the pass. They've got a great coach, Kevin O'Connell, who to me is the coach of the year front runner. Defensively, they defend the run well. They defend the pass well. We know that they're very well coached on that end. Like, what more do you have to see to think that the Vikings are at least a fringe top 5 team in football? I don't know. I get that the Packers have a flashier offense. I'm going to take the Vikings over them. I think they're the more complete football team, and I definitely expect them to win a playoff game because they're going to draw either the NFC West winner or the NFC South winner. I think that they kind of make light work of either of those teams. Well, unless it's the Rams come out of the NFC West, that scares me. The NFC West team, Seattle or the Rams, I would give more respect to. The NFC South winner, I think the Vikings
the Bucks are
wash.
Bucks are probably going to get fried in that game.
Yeah, I would think so.
Also, I don't know if you agree with me, and people can get upset about this. I think there's an argument that Sam Darnold, and I get it that people think that Jared Goff is an MVP candidate because of the record. I think there's an argument that Sam Darnold has actually played better than Jared Goff this year.
I think that there's an argument too. I mean, he certainly moves better.
And I mean, like, I think when we're looking at like how much you have to do, I might argue that Darnold like has to do more. So like I don't want to put myself fully out there and get decapitated or anything, but I do think that we got to give Darnold his flowers, man. As much criticism, right? And he's exceeded all my expectations. Like, and people want to give me and Carson said preseason this was the best Sam Darnold was ever going to look. And yet I didn't think he could look this good.
No.
He's exceeding all of my expectations. And I do believe that, though. I think that he's probably played better than Goff. Like, again, it's really comparable, but I think Darnold probably has.
Do you think he's right on the outskirts of the top 10?
Here, I actually did my list the other day with, and this
I love how every other week we talk about the fringe top 10.
I have to review this. Right now, Darnold was my 17th guy.
Okay. Well, there's a lot of good quarterbacks.
There are, and this is a fully healthy league.
How much higher is Goff?
Just 2 spots. The only guy in between Goff and Darnold is Dak Prescott.
Interesting. Yeah. I think that he is playing at that level. The thing is, as you say, the Lions do need less from Goff because the run game is so dominant and they're so dominant in the trenches. On the other side of this, Logan, rough game for the Falcons, who are just in a rough skid right now. They've lost 4 straight. They've lost their lead of the division. Is it time to bench Kirk Cochains?
I don't think so. But yeah, the last 4 games have been rough. Like, Atlanta was basically in pole position to run away with the NFC South if they could just not implode. Kirk has no touchdowns to 8 picks with a passer rating under 64 over these last 4 games. On the season, he's got 4 games with multiple turnovers. And on the year, he's 3,400 yards, 17 touchdowns, 15 picks with a passer rating of 89. We've just seen too many meltdowns from him. And there's still things that I think Kirk can do at a high level. I think he can be on time, and I think he can be accurate. And those are really valuable things. But Kirk is the least mobile starting quarterback in the NFL.
Yes.
I'll give him props. Today he had a 15-yard scramble that was unfortunately brought back by a holding penalty. But he is impressively immobile. He is incapable of evading pressure. And it's not just that he can't evade pass rushers. It's also that Kirk is so immobile, he can't even slide to create passing angles. So like when a pass rusher, say Kirk is throwing a ball over the middle on a in route or a drag route, say to a slot receiver, right? So they're breaking where the middle linebacker would be. If the pressure gets home in the middle of the pocket, Kirk is so immobile, he can't even do a slide to create that passing angle. Like that ball is just going to get batted down at the line of scrimmage. And so I think this makes Kirk one of the easiest quarterbacks to game plan for. And that's where I think Atlanta has really run into problems. You're just getting to the spot. Kirk is dropping in the middle of that pocket every time, which means that if your guys can just get there, it's over. Like if you can disrupt the timing at all, or you can just Kirk has to be so specific, because if you disrupt that at all, Kirk can't get his full weight into a ball, which he's still kind of clearly a little bit hampered by that injury in terms of planting and throwing and mobility. But even that being said, I don't know how much of this loss I put on Kirk, right? He has the turnovers, obviously, and he didn't play well. I don't think he's played up to the standard that he set for himself last year. To me, the game kind of swung on that kickoff fumble, and then the Vikings immediately scored. So this game individually, I agree, this skid has been on Kirk. I don't know how much of this game I really put on him, but I just don't know if there's a point to putting in Penix. And the only reason I say that is I just ask, is he the best win now option? Like I obviously am not on the inside of the Atlanta building, but like to me, you're throwing him into the fire. There's a lot of pressure immediately for a rookie quarterback to win right now and to propel you into the playoffs. What I'm saying is, I wonder if it's better to just let this season live and die on Kirk's shoulders instead of shoehorning a rookie quarterback in there and putting all the pressure on him. Because if Penix comes in here and doesn't perform well and they lose the division, then you go into this offseason and you still have this quarterback convo. And maybe that's the scared money option. I'm just more comfortable if Kirk continues to crap his pants. Then we can just say, all right, Kirk, you're done after this year. We're going to move on to Penix next year. I just think you give yourself more questions if you put in Penix and he doesn't perform well. And more importantly, I don't really think the change from Kirk to Penix makes that much of a difference in winning now. Do you feel differently? Do you think Penix gives them a real tangible chance to win more games right now?
I think I've officially entered just give it a shot mode. Last week, I was saying let's give Kirk a little bit more of a run. Now, I don't know, man. I mean, just the complete lack of pocket mobility, it's crippling. It's absolutely crippling. Kirk under pressure today was awful. Against the blitz, he was 1 of 5 with an interception, and it's just been the most glaring red flag, the most glaring limitation for this team in this recent stretch. It was awesome early in the year when Kirk was finding a way to make throws out of these like super condensed pockets and was still delivering some accurate balls, but it's not happening right now. I mean, 0 touchdowns, 8 interceptions over the last 4 games. And I mean, he's still producing yardage through the air. His efficiency through the air hasn't been terrible, but we also saw last week was horrible, right? And there were a couple of just complete lame duck throws in that game. And you're in a bad skid, and maybe it's just a rallying point if you get Penix out there. But like I said, I would just be in give it a shot mode. Give Penix a week. And if Penix doesn't look up to it, that's fine. You can go back to Kirk. Like, I get you still want to make the playoffs, but also you completely suck right now. And I think there's a real chance that Penix does give you as good, if not a slightly better chance than this version of Kirk Cousins, who over the last 4 weeks has been one of the worst starting quarterbacks in football. It's weird because they're still paying Kirk next year no matter what. They don't have an out until after then. So I don't feel like strong urgency to get Penix out there because eventually you're going to find out what Penix looks like. And my thought was, well, Kirk's going to start this year. Kirk will start at least some next year, and then maybe you see Penix. But this got pretty dire pretty fast. Kirk is really, really struggling right now.
And I hear the argument.
I think just give it a shot. See if having a guy who is pro ready in Penix, who is actually 42 years old, played 18 years of college football, who can at least move around like a younger man, if that makes a difference.
Kirk is, and that is the argument, because it's even different from like, I'm thinking of the most immobile quarterbacks I can ever remember.
Flacco right now is pretty
Flacco
immobile.
is probably the pinnacle. Old Peyton, like 2015
Yeah.
Peyton was really bad. Kirk's
Old
up there in those
Breeze couldn't move.
conversations, though. Yeah. Old
Yeah.
Brady. Even old
Young
Brady was
Peyton.
more mobile than this. Young
Yeah, no,
Peyton's
it's really
crazy.
bad.
Young Peyton is crazy.
Well, old Brady also couldn't move at all, dude. You look at the stats from old Peyton and old Brady, and it's both like, whoa, they have the lowest sack rate in the league every single year. And it's like, well, they were getting rid of the ball in 1.9
Dude,
seconds because anything more, they were going to die on the field.
I will die on the hill that is the worst quarterback to ever win a Super Bowl, man. I swear.
2015 Peyton. Yeah, that's a pretty good take.
I know that he can control the line of scrimmage.
The
Peyton,
winning fallacy, man.
bro,
The winning fallacy. Oh, he did all the little things. He was a genius. They couldn't have done it without him. 9 touchdowns, 17 picks.
mid-season, when Brock Osweiler won that game at Foxborough against Tom Brady, he had me believing he was the savior for Denver.
I don't care. I'm taking 2015 Peyton over Burrow. I'm taking 2015 Peyton over Lamar. I'm taking 2015 Peyton over Josh Allen.
It's a good
Where's
take.
their
He
Super Bowl?
won a Super Bowl. Duh.
He won a Super Bowl.
Duh.
Where's their Super Bowl?
Come
Don't
on.
see it. Lifelong losers. Let's play a little contenders or pretenders, Logan.
Let's
We'll
do it.
run through some of these teams. You'll tell me if you think they're legit contenders or if they are not. Let's start with the Eagles. After a little bit of a scary game, a win against the Panthers, but closer than they would have liked. Are they contenders or pretenders?
They're still very much contenders. And a couple of things from Philadelphia that I didn't like in this. One, their traditional slow and sluggish start that has been maybe the biggest issue for Philadelphia this year. They just can't score in the first quarter. I think they're the lowest scoring first quarter team in the NFL this year. They just get out of the block slow and dig themselves holes. So that continued again in this game. I thought there was some bad situational offensive play calling. I wasn't a fan of some of the stuff they did in this one. But honestly, I just thought this was a really good Carolina game. One, I thought they did a phenomenal job in pass coverage. Every time Jalen Hurts dropped back to pass, he had time. There was nobody open. Like, I thought Carolina just did a really good job in coverage today. I also thought Bryce Young played a really good game. He's got a bad interception in this one, but for the most part, I thought Bryce played a really good game. And Saquon still got going. You do have they could have lost this one. I mean, Leggett basically drops the go-ahead touchdown in this one. So I think Philadelphia escaped this one, luckily. But as we've been saying, I still think they're one of the most talented teams in football, top to bottom. They have a MVP candidate on their team in Saquon Barkley. Saquon, to me, has put this team over the top. They were already really talented before they got him. And now that they have Saquon, I still think they're a bona fide contender. They gotta fix it. They gotta figure this thing out, though. The most important thing to me is them figuring out how to get offense early. Elliott also misses a field goal in this one, but to me, that's the biggest thing for Philadelphia is just getting points on the board early in games.
I think Philadelphia is very obviously a contender. I had them as the number 3 team in my power rankings last week. So don't be mad at us, Philly fans. Just wanted a quick little way to talk about your game. I do think, although they are absolutely contenders, this game does show you some of the things that you worry about with Philly. The slow starts. I mean, that has been a problem all year. I didn't think this was a very good Hurts game. And you give some credit to Carolina in coverage. I also thought there were some spots where he was holding on to the ball too long, and there were potential opportunities to find a receiver downfield. He held on to the ball for 3.5 seconds on average. That was the longest time to throw in the NFL this week. And he took 4 sacks and he only threw for 108 yards. So that is ultimately a reason that I prefer Detroit, even as it feels like Philadelphia has become the team that most people are picking out of the NFC. And I think that they're close, but I think Jared Goff can win you more games with his arm. I mean, I do worry about the pocket presence.
I like
with
Darnold
Hurts.
more, man. I'll go ahead and say
You like Darnold more than Hurts?
Yeah, in my QB rankings, right? They're to be clear, it's not a massive gap. They're literally right next to each other. At 17 for me, it's Darnold. At 18, it's Hurts.
Hurts has been playing well as of late, and I think that Kellen Moore has been putting him in a position to succeed. And I think obviously his athleticism can be a big asset, and he's been efficient as a passer recently. It's just he's not a guy who I want to put the shoulders on to go out there and win a game with his arm the way that he has been playing as a passer for the last almost 2 years. But obviously Philly's great. They're absolutely a contender. I will say the Saquon MVP stuff, it's not doing it for me. Not only would I clearly have Josh above him, I would clearly have Lamar above him. I don't know why we've passed on Lamar as the second biggest threat in the MVP conversation. Both those guys are quarterbacks leading out top 3 scoring offenses Josh has 33 total touchdowns to 7 turnovers. Lamar has 32 total touchdowns to 7 turnovers. They've both been crazy efficient passing and rushing.
Had a bad game today, though.
Not at all. No. Saquon is amazing. Saquon is having one of the best running back seasons of all time. It's not an anti-Saquon thing at all. It's no running back can be more valuable than an elite quarterback playing at the level of a Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson. That's all it comes down to. No running back has made a better case for MVP since Adrian Peterson, probably, than Saquon is doing right now. And I still don't think that his case really holds a candle to those other two guys. I just think it's the reality of the sport, right? I mean, you take Josh out of the offense, you take Lamar out of the offense, versus you take Saquon out of the offense. He's obviously made a difference, but the Eagles have still had pretty elite offenses the last 2 years. I just don't think a running back can win MVP, but I do really like the Eagles. I think they're absolutely a contender. How about the Packers, who didn't play today, but did play on Thursday, and probably the Thursday night football game of the year, definitely in terms of at least the caliber of the teams. Are they contenders or pretenders?
Yeah, I think the Packers are contenders too. I know you've been skeptical about their defense. I really do like them. They are playmakers. I really like their secondary. And I like Jordan Love. Jordan Love disappointed me in this game, man. I've been spearheading the Jordan Love charge as of late.
Wait, you were just fired up like 30 seconds ago about Jordan Love. You had him above Stafford.
Well, no, I mean,
by the way, I think we have Drew, our buddy Drew from Pick a Side in the chat. I can't imagine who else would be saying Bo leave. So how do we kick him out? We gotta put him in timeout. Anyways, as you were saying,
I think we should get him on here right now. He should preach about Bo Nix and why the Broncos are real contenders.
They're on bye.
They played in my heart. So did Bo. I love me some Bo Nix. Jordan Love disappointed me in this game. I'm not going to lie. I thought he was the one guy that didn't really pull his weight. I thought everybody else had a really good game. I thought he kind of under-delivered, but they still went toe-to-toe with Detroit. They had them on the ropes, right? Like, they almost won this game. And that's not the goal, right? The goal is to win, obviously. But I like this team on both sides of the ball. I think they're really well coached. And yeah, I think Jordan Love is the man. I hope this is the worst game that he's going to play this year. I'm trying to think about teams that are going to make the playoffs in the field. Whatever. He's a top 7 guy I want under center for me in any game. And I don't think it's changing. I really buy into Jordan.
Yeah, I do think the Packers are contenders, but I do think they're very much on the fringes of being legitimate contenders to me. It's not because of the offense, although obviously Love, as fun as the highs have been with him and as crazy as he is capable of making some of these plays, this offense is really explosive, but also, right, he has had his fair share of turnovers this year. He has been a little inconsistent if we're going to hold him to the standard of an elite quarterback.
Just because I thought about it, like you mentioned, I do think he tries to get a little bit too cute sometimes with some of his throws.
He lives for it.
And
he wants everything to be off platform, everything to be off his back foot.
Like, it's aesthetically pleasing, but it's not the most effective. He will miss some throws time to time because of that.
Yeah, there's a little bit of inconsistency there, but that's really not my concern with this team. I think they're a really, really good offense. Just think the defense is very meh, and I think that you saw them have some real trouble in coverage against the Lions. Our buddy Theo put up a video talking about some of those issues. I believe that they have the 2 worst games of any team in terms of allowing passing yards over the middle of the field. The Packers do this entire season. That's a problem. They're 18th overall in net yards per pass attempt allowed. And when they've played really good teams and really good offenses against the Eagles, against the Vikings, both games against the Lions, they're allowing 31 points per game in those games, and they're 0-4. That does concern me. I think that their offense gives them a chance, but there's a lot of elite offenses out there, and there are better offenses than the Packers. And some of those teams also have better defenses. So that's why I say that they're sort of on the outskirts. I really like them, but I do think there are some inconsistencies with them. Okay, we already talked about the Vikings, but are they contenders or pretenders to you?
Contenders, for sure.
Contenders. I think they're a more solid all-around team than the Packers, and I've been on that side. How about, Logan, the Seattle Seahawks?
Pretenders. I think they could win a playoff game, but they can't win the Super Bowl, and that's the standard, right? I think Geno's got a ton of skill position guys to work with here. JSN, DK Metcalf, right? Like Tyler Lockett. I think the offense can be explosive one week, but it's like you mentioned earlier with the offensive line. They probably have the worst offensive line at any team in my top 10. I mean, they are abysmal.
Definitely. I mean, bro, they might have the worst offensive line in football. It's like them and the Pats.
Yeah, I mean, they've slowly got the Pats. Some of the Pat stuff on tape is sad, dude. I feel for Drake May, but and the Jets. The Jets' offensive line blows. Seattle's
But it's
offensive
not
line is
quite
not
as
good.
bad.
The defense has gotten better. I really like Geno. They check a lot of my boxes. If the offensive line was better, I'll be honest, they would be contenders to me. That is
Sure.
their one hole. But when that's your hole, I'm going to consider you a pretender. Like I said, they could win a playoff game. I don't think they could go much further than that.
They could win a playoff game, but wouldn't you view them as like a relatively significant underdog to the
To me, it
Vikings
would be
or
like
Packers,
it would be like the
who they
Bucks
draw?
winning a playoff game last year, right?
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, I love Geno. I love Geno. I've been singing his praises forever, and this defense is playing well, but I just cannot consider a team that is this bad in terms of the offensive line contender. That's why I said that I still think the Rams are scarier in the NFC West. I wouldn't even want to call the Seahawks a pretender because I don't think a lot of people are calling them a contender. I do think they're good, but they're not a contender. They're firmly not a contender. How about, Logan? Last team we'll discuss, your Pittsburgh Steelers. Are they contenders or are they pretenders?
Steelers fans,
Oh, boy.
please do not send me death threats. Please do not.
I'm already on it. I've already put your address in the chat.
Please don't put a gun to my head. The Pittsburgh Steelers are pretenders. I feel the exact same way I feel about the Steelers as the Seahawks. They could win a playoff game. I don't think the Steelers could win a Super Bowl. And I see it on ESPN and I see the media personalities and they go, this is a complete team top to bottom. They don't have any holes. They could win the Super Bowl. No, they can't. No, they can't. I'll tell you exactly why. I've said this from the beginning of the year, guys. I love the Steelers. I love the Steelers more than anything else. This is the most competitive Steelers team we have had in a long time. This is the best Steelers team of the TJ Watt era. This is the best Steelers team since the 2010 AFC champions that lost in the Super Bowl to the Green Bay Packers. That being said, we are 28th in red zone percentage. We got to put the ball in the damn end zone if we want to win football games. And I love me some Arthur Smith. I love me some Russell Wilson. Arthur Smith has done miracles for this offense. We have been saved. Arthur Smith saved me from Matt Canada. Russell Wilson saved me from Mitch Trubisky. We're so much better than last year. It's not even funny. And we win this game this week without George Pickens. Oh, my God. I didn't believe it. Mike Williams stepped up and made some plays. So did other guys. The Steelers have really struggled in the red zone, and they have really struggled in the red zone with Russell Wilson under center. I just don't think the field goals are going to cut it in the playoffs. And another win against the lowly Browns is not going to move me. Don't get me wrong. I was ecstatic. I hate the Browns more than any other football team in the NFL today. I can't stand them.
Yeah, kick them while they're down, buddy.
I'm not going to say how I can't. I'm not going to say that about the Browns. I don't like the Browns at all.
This is a sick and twisted individual I'm doing this podcast with. Lord knows what he was about to say about the poor people of Cleveland.
But we got to put the ball in the end zone, man. We struggled in the red zone. I don't know how you feel, if you feel differently, Carson. I think they are a complete team. God bless Chris Boswell for his existence. But when we're talking about real deal contenders, I still feel there is a gap in the offensive ability of the Kansas City Chiefs, of the Buffalo Bills with the Josh Allen, even of the Baltimore Ravens. I know that's the big one that everybody gets on me with because they're like, oh, we own the Ravens. We beat them in head-to-head. We beat them this year. I know, guys. They have Lamar Jackson. And again, until we see the red zone issues completely dissolve, they were better today. It still wasn't perfect. I'm still not moved. I know that other people are. I'm still not moved.
I think they're close, man. I think the Steelers are close to being true contenders. I don't have them there. I'm with you. I do think clearly the offense has been significantly better with Russ at the helm, but the red zone issues are real. And I think that Boz is responsible for 43% of your guys' total points or something. It's the highest percentage in the NFL.
Yes.
It's not a way you want to make a living in the playoffs. And it's not a way that you're going to beat the Bills or probably the Chiefs. I mean, literally think about what Sean McVay did today. Sean McVay went for it on a 4th and 5 in field goal range. They would have gone up 6 He said, no, we have to go up 2 scores. That was the right decision. That's what you have to be capable of doing in a matchup against one of those offenses. And I just don't like the Steelers' ability to do that consecutively. Okay. Maybe they can beat a Baltimore in the first round, right? We've already seen them beat Baltimore. Their defense is the best in football, and they can do that. TJ can have a monster game. The entire defense is awesome. They can have a couple swing plays and Russ can hit on a couple of explosives. Are they going to then do it the week after against Buffalo, then do it the week after against Kansas City? That's just where I don't see it.
I'm glad you bring up that point, because I think the Steelers can beat any team in the NFL on any given Sunday. I'm so glad you made that point. That's how good the Steelers are. That's why I say that they're the best team since the last time we went to the Super Bowl. I recognize how good this team is, and I preached from the mountaintops. You people are clowning me in the chat. I told y'all preseason.
Yeah, you did.
Everybody told me the Steelers were going to be 3rd or 4th in the division, and I told y'all we're going to either win it or we're going to be 2nd, because we had Mitch Trubisky throw 3 games away last year. He gave them away. And we still won 10 games. And you give me Russell Wilson, or I know it. But it's exactly what you just said right now, Carson. For a team that settles this much in the red zone and struggles, you're just going to leave yourself short if that's in the wild card game, if it's in the divisional game, if it's in the title game. The red zone struggles to me are real with this team. And it's their only flaw. Guys, if they clean this up over the next 3 to 4 weeks and Russ is nails in the red zone, I might be moved to say we could go on a run. But that's been the Achilles heel of this team, and I still feel like it's the reason that they would come up short in the playoffs.
I agree with you there. Everybody is flawed, though. Everybody is flawed this year. But while we're talking about AFC playoff teams, I'm going to make this about the Bills one more time because I just can't get away from it. Right now, as of today, the Bills are still my pick to win the AFC. I want to say that now because there was a lot of negative talk about today's game. I believe in the offense that much. What I will say,
I like
what
it.
Today's game made very clear, if it wasn't already, and it was, I've said this the entire season, but if the Bills lose, we know how they're going to lose. We know what the loss is going to be on, but I think the offense is that great. I think they can get the Chiefs. I think they can do it again. All right. Real quick, Logan, let's go from some of the best, or at least bubble contenders, to the worst of the worst. We're at that point of the year where bad teams are looking to the draft. I was watching football today with my buddy Mikey. He's a Raiders fan. Poor bastard. Gets his hopes up every year, and they have just been terrible for 20 years. And he is like fully invested in the Giants winning. He's rooting on all the terrible teams to win and his own team to lose because he wants that number 1 draft pick. Which fan base, Logan, do you think is going to be so bad that they are ultimately rewarded that prize?
Well, there's some bad teams. I didn't realize there were this many like actual bottom.
Oh, we've got some bottom
feeders.
dwellers. We've got some bottom dwellers.
There's legitimately 7 teams in the hunt to potentially get the number 1 pick. 8. I didn't count. I can't count. 8.
Oh, you've never been great with counting or reading
or numbers or
yeah,
learning. Giants, Raiders, Pats, Jaguars, Panthers, Titans, Jets, Browns, all at 3 wins or less, all with a legitimate opportunity to capture the flag. With the number 1 pick, obviously you would take Cooper Flag, number 1 overall. I'd take his big ass at tight end.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer.
I'd be throwing moonballs up to him all day long. He'd be the best tight end in the game.
Athlete. Well, he just does everything. I mean, he's incredibly versatile.
Exactly. I'm going to take the Giants. The Raiders are close for me. The Raiders have a little too much gusto and fire for me. I just feel like 1 week. Also, dude, a cop died mid-game. He got carted off the field. I don't know if you saw that in the Raiders game.
Did he actually die?
Yeah, there was a guy with kind of a chubby guy with a mustache. He got carted off the field.
Is this Paul Blart? Did this happen in Paul Blart Mall Cop or something?
No, this was in the Raiders game. There was a policeman.
I haven't seen Paul Blart Mall Cop, if that's what you're referring to.
Have you actually never seen Paul Blart?
No, I've not, but did I just pick up on that? That's pretty good. That's pretty good right there for me.
You haven't seen that.
Kevin James's finest film out of a brilliant catalog.
I think they made a second one. The Raiders, I just feel like are going to somehow, just because they can't get out of their own way. For Mikey's sake, I hope they would lose out. I think they're going to walk into some win, probably over Atlanta next week or Jacksonville the week after. And then they've got New Orleans. So they've got games they can win.
Yeah.
The Giants, to me, are so bad that they're just going to end up doing it. I think they go 2-15 because they're either going to start DeVito or Drew Lock. I think Drew Lock has swag. Unfortunately, swag isn't enough to win you football games. And I don't know. Dable, I don't like. He's so much of a hothead. I feel like he's ready to spontaneously combust at any given moment.
Yeah, but who could blame the guy? Look at the quarterback play he's had.
Dude, it's just vibes. I just think the Giants are somehow just going to be so
catastrophically
the Giants
bad.
Suck. Yeah.
They suck.
Who's your pick, man? Who is there
I think it's the Giants.
Sticks out?
I mean, the Giants are absolutely terrible. And they are 2-11. And I mean, their remaining schedule, bro. Eagles, Ravens, Colts, Falcons. That's tough. For them, that's great. But I think that they're a disaster. I mean, outside of their pass rush, I like their pass rush. But yeah, they're really, really bad. And everybody else, I think the Pats are in the mix just because they have a tough schedule left. They're 3-10. And I love me a little Drake May, but they've got to play the Bills twice. They've got to play the Cardinals. They've got to play the Chargers. The Raiders are 2-11, but I just think the schedule is too light. If you give them Jags and Saints without Derek Carr, I think they'll win one of those.
You're looking at Mac Jones and Jake Hayner on the schedule.
I mean, it doesn't get worse. It doesn't get
worse.
With
Desmond Ridder under center.
Desmond Ridder, who honestly might be better than AOC because AOC sucks.
He might be the best quarterback in the room.
Out of it. You think he's better than Gardner? I don't know. What happened to your quirked up white boy? No, but Aiden O'Connell sucks.
I think Drew made a great point, dude. Somehow, Daniel Jones was the glue that held that team together.
No.
I can't believe it. Dude, he's right.
No.
Dude, you had guys apparently in the locker room crying because Daniel got cut. Like, he was holding that team together,
real?
Man. I don't know. It may have been a fake story. I may have got sent.
I believe Neighbors was not crying.
I heard somebody was crying because Daniel got cut.
Yeah, it was Daniel. No, it was Drew. Drew got a media pass just so he could cry and tell Danny Dimes that he still believes in him and he just needs another chance. What about the Jets, Logan? Do you think the Jets have any chance here? How funny is that the New York Jets are in the mix?
Real chance. Just because the Jets, ironically, have also just completely given up on this season. And even though they had that go-ahead, they had that go-ahead, you knew.
Rodgers was actually great today. Rodgers was great today, and they still couldn't get a win.
Classic, bro.
It's unbelievable.
They go to Jacksonville, and that's a reason I didn't pick against them. I gotta think it's a sort of pride thing that they beat Mac Jones. But then they've got 3 tough games. They host the Rams, they travel to Buffalo, and then they host Miami, all of which I expect to be losses. But I just can't imagine the Jets lose in Duval against Mac Jones.
No, I agree. I also think they get the Dolphins again. That's a toss-up, man. I think those two teams are very similar caliber. That's the crazy thing. The Jets obviously are the disappointment of the season, and fundamentally they suck. They're 3-10, but they don't suck as much as a 3-10 team. They're 0-7 in games decided by 6 points or fewer.
They're the greatest 3-10 team of all time, bro.
They are the greatest 3-10 team of all time. I actually think that's true.
Hang the banner.
Hang the banner. Hold on now, fellas. We're looking at this all wrong. You got a very competitive tank, and now you're going to pair Aaron Rodgers with Cooper Flagg? You're going to have Cooper Flagg running routes? Oh, my God. They're going to be unstoppable.
Super team.
That's going to be a super team. Who do you think the Giants would pick at number 1? Are you really into draft stuff yet? I mean, I think they go quarterback. I don't mean to put pressure on you if you haven't really.
No, I mean, I guess it just depends on how close. I was for a while. I mean, I was all in on like Travis Hunter. I mean, I'm wondering, like, do you take Jeanty just because Jeanty's?
No, he's not going to go 1. He's not going to go 1. It's either going to be Travis or it's going to be a quarterback. It might be Cam Ward. It might be Shadur. It might be Alar. He's picking up a lot of steam.
I mean, my favorite guy, I really liked Nessmeyer. I wouldn't take Nessmeyer 1.
No.
I don't know if I like any of these quarterbacks. Cam Ward's probably my favorite. I don't like Shadur.
I think I agree. I think Cam Ward is probably my favorite too. I got to watch more of all these guys, but he's a pretty special playmaker. But Alar is just like definitely the best pocket passer. He's the most polished, but also he's not the level athlete of the other guys, but Cam plays a pretty wild style. And I just don't think I want to touch Shedeur, bro. I think he is an exceptionally bad leader. I've never heard a quarterback speak about his teammates the way that Shedeur has talked about his teammates and his offensive line. Like, I just don't want that, dude.
Well, I just don't know if he gets it. You know,
Yeah.
I just don't know if he yeah, I don't know if he really
Yeah.
understands like what it's going to take. And also, I don't like the notion with all of these teams too. Whoever does ultimately end up with his pick, right? If it's hypothetically, if Vegas gets it, if New York gets it, if Jacksonville gets it, all of these teams are teams that are likely going to be looking for a new head coach, right? Because I don't think Carolina is going to move off Canales. They also don't need a quarterback. Tennessee is not going to move off Callahan. They might go QB, but I honestly think they'll probably give Levis one more year to stink it up.
Yeah, he's great. Why wouldn't you? He's got Mayo commercials.
I'm ready to give up on Will Levis. I have already determined
that
I think Will Levis is not that guy.
Yeah.
The Browns aren't going to move off Stefanski. So what I'm getting at with this is for a lot of these teams, it could get the number one pick, most notably Jacksonville, Vegas, and New York. I feel like if they took Shedeur, would probably be inclined to hire Dion as your head coach.
No. I don't agree with that.
I think there'd be a maybe not internally, but I feel like the media would try to push that, and I wouldn't want Dion. That's just I don't like that.
No, I don't think that's going to happen at all. I think Dion's trying to build something at Colorado.
I hope.
I think he's much better suited for a college program where he can recruit the talent and he can be a face like that and he can have the NIL advantages. I don't think that would even be a concern. And I mean, Shedeur seems to really want to go to the Raiders and Dion seems to really want him to go to the Raiders. But I think the Giants would take a quarterback. I don't think they would take Travis. I think that they need to try to find their savior. But like if it was the Jags, absolutely. Obviously, they would take Travis.
You don't think Gent's worthy of a number one pick just because he's a running back?
Brother. You don't get a better running back prospect than Bijan Robinson. He went 8th.
I mean, Gent's up there for one of the best I've ever seen.
He's up there for one of the best college running backs. I don't know that he's quite up there as one of the best prospects. I mean, obviously Saquon went 2nd.
Yeah.
And the running back is having a comeback, but I don't think having a comeback to a dude being a number one conversation, because also Saquon is a much crazier prospect.
They should have just
Gent's awesome, but he's small.
Giants should have just brought back Saquon. I just like him kind of salivating at the prospect of having Neighbors and Genty, but you wouldn't have a quarterback. I think it's more important that you get somebody that
it's good to have a quarterback.
That can just get Malik Neighbors.
What is this Tyrone Tracy dismissal?
Tyrone Tracy's good. He's good. Yeah.
He's legitimately good. And I just looked it up on Pro Football Reference. His nickname is Paul Pierce. Where does that come from? That's just another guy. That's not a nickname. Yeah.
The Truth. Let's just call him the Truth.
I don't know. His nickname is not the Truth. His nickname is Paul Pierce. Paul Pierce's nickname is the Truth. Tyrone Tracy's nickname is Paul Pierce. You learn something new every day. On that note, let's wrap this puppy up. Thank you all you guys for coming and enjoying. I am a little bit heightest, Drew has observed in the chat. I am a little bit heightest. I'm not going to lie about it. And I think it matters that we're all honest about our height and that we don't participate in height inflation. Logan, for example, if we were to be honest, you're 5'4". You would probably say you're 6 foot.
You're dyslexic. I'm 4'5".
Excuse me. I did get that messed up. All right, guys, that's going to wrap it up. Hope you enjoyed this one. Hope you enjoyed all the football. If you did, the good news is we've got plenty more content. We've got all of our NFL full shows and all of our NBA full shows right here on our YouTube channel. You can also listen to all of them across all audio platforms, but you can also on our YouTube channel find our video essays, video breakdowns that we do on both the NFL and the NBA on more specific topics, specific players and teams. And if you want even more of our content, we've got plenty of it over on social, TikTok at NerdSesh, Instagram at NerdSesh, Twitter at Nerd_Sesh. There you can see clips from the show, some of the graphics of rankings that we do from the show, and you can see all of our trivia content, all of our short form trivia stuff. So that's all on social. You can join our Discord if you want. The link to that is at the link tree across our social media bios. And you can check out our merch. That is also linked in our link tree, and that is at breakingtea.com. So with that, as always, appreciate you guys. I've been Carson Brabber.
I have been Logan Camden.
And this was Nerd Sesh.